From racket-smashing outbursts to fiery press conference walkouts and emotional on-court breakdowns, in this video, we're diving into the moments when tennis's calmest stars finally snapped. And first, we start with a player who turned frustration into theater, Daniil Medvedev. Daniil Medvedev. When control collapsed. At the 2025 US Open, Daniil Medvedev stepped onto the court with his trademark focus, a mix of calculation and composure that made him one of tennis's sharpest minds. Facing Benjamin Bonzi, he appeared in control. The rallies were precise, the angles deliberate, the rhythm his own. Then came the interruption that changed everything.
Medvedev encouraging the crowd right now to keep booing.
A photographer accidentally entered the court just as Bonzi was about to serve for the match. Play stopped for several minutes. The umpire called a delay and then, controversially, allowed Bonzi a first serve. It was a minor decision by rule, but for Medvedev, it was a breaking point. The moment snapped something in him. He argued with the chair umpire, his tone clipped and sarcastic. The crowd murmured, unsure if it was irritation or disbelief. When the umpire stood firm, Medvedev's frustration turned theatrical. He gestured toward the audience, sarcastically rallying them to boo, and muttered under his breath, "Are you a man?" Cameras caught every word. From there, his precision evaporated. Bonzi closed out the match, but nobody was talking about the score. The focus was on Medvedev, the man who lost control of a match and, momentarily, his image. His racket met the court in an explosion of frustration. Later, the fine came, over $40,000 for unsportsmanlike conduct. But the cost wasn't the money, it was what it revealed. Medvedev built his career on restraint, on being the strategist who doesn't break under chaos. But here, he did. For once, his icy calm shattered in front of thousands. It wasn't about Bonzi, it was about identity, about what happens when someone whose brand is composure meets a moment that exposes the human underneath. In post-match interviews, Medvedev tried to downplay the moment, saying it was just frustration. But the clip replayed worldwide, memes, highlights, commentary. It became a study in the psychology of elite sport, how even the most calculated minds can unravel when perfection collides with imperfection. That night didn't just end in defeat, it marked a shift in how fans saw him. The logic-driven player showed emotion. The machine had cracked. And for many, that made him more relatable. The scene wasn't a loss of control, it was proof that control always has a limit. Nick Kyrgios, tango with temperament. Nick Kyrgios has always been a contradiction, wildly talented, yet chronically unpredictable. The 2019 Cincinnati Masters summed him up better than any interview ever could. Facing Karen Khachanov, Kyrgios clashed with the umpire over a perceived delay in the shot clock. Within minutes, frustration turned to fury. He shouted, argued, and mocked. When a warning came, he responded by calling the umpire the worst fucking referee ever. The audience gasped, some laughed. After losing the second set, Kyrgios stormed off, smashed 2 rackets in the tunnel, and returned to finish the match. The footage spread instantly. His fine, $113,000, set a record. But here's the thing about Kyrgios. His meltdowns are not random explosions. They are releases. For years, he's spoken about how the mental grind of tennis wears him down. The routines, the expectations, the constant scrutiny. In Cincinnati, it wasn't just about a call. It was about years of internal tension finally surfacing. Kyrgios's anger isn't clean. It's messy, sarcastic, and often self-destructive. Yet it's also part of his magnetism. Fans don't just watch him play, they watch him combust and rebuild in real time. Every outburst feels like a window into his internal battle. The part of him that hates authority, routine, and control, clashing with the part that wants to win. After that match, he defended himself online, saying tennis needed more personality. And he's not entirely wrong. In a sport often defined by etiquette and politeness, Kyrgios brings unfiltered emotion. sometimes ugly, sometimes brilliant. For all the chaos, there's authenticity in it. He doesn't fake politeness when he's angry, and he doesn't hide frustration behind rehearsed answers. It's dangerous for his career, sure, but it's real. That night in Cincinnati didn't define Kyrgios as a villain, it defined him as human. Beneath the spectacle, the tantrums, and the smashed rackets lies a player still learning to live with himself. And maybe that's what keeps people watching. Andy Roddick, the racket-snapping reality check. Andy Roddick, known for his thunderous serve and sharp wit, was one of the fiercest competitors of his generation. But behind that composed exterior was a fuse shorter than most expected. One of his most unforgettable meltdowns came at the 2008 Miami Masters, a scene that perfectly captured the tension between control and combustion.
100% I could listen for a second instead of talking all damn day. You don't think I could have touched the ball? 100% I could not have touched the ball. You're an idiot.
Facing Tommy Haas in a crucial match, Roddick started strong but soon found himself struggling against Haas's counterpunching rhythm. Missed serves, a few unlucky net chords, and questionable line calls built pressure like a storm under his cap. Then came the boiling point, a tight tiebreaker where a single missed forehand sent Roddick into a spiral. The camera caught it all, the smashed racket, the sarcastic claps toward the umpire, and the muttered frustrations that echoed louder than the Miami crowd. But what set this moment apart wasn't just the physical outburst, it was the dialogue that followed. Roddick, always quick-witted, didn't hold back. He berated the chair umpire with a mix of biting humor and visible fury, saying, "You're unbelievable, man. That's your job. To make sure the ball's in or out. Do it right." It was vintage Roddick, emotional, intelligent, and completely unfiltered. The audience, half amused and half stunned, watched a man known for confidence unravel before their eyes. After the match, Roddick reflected with brutal honesty. "Sometimes I care too much," he admitted in interviews, "and when I do, it spills over." That sentence became the core of his career's emotional arc, passion as both weapon and weakness. Roddick wasn't a serial hothead like McEnroe, but when pressure pushed too far, his emotions flared raw and real. In hindsight, this meltdown revealed something deeper. Tennis, a sport built on etiquette and silence, rarely allows room for eruption. Yet Roddick's moment showed that intensity and imperfection coexist, that behind every ace and trophy is an athlete constantly negotiating between composure and chaos. When fans look back, they don't just remember Roddick for his US Open win or his famous battles with Federer. They remember the human flashes, the sarcasm, the smashed rackets, the emotion that proved he wasn't just playing the game, he was living it. In a sport obsessed with calm precision, Roddick's meltdown wasn't a blemish. It was a reminder that sometimes, losing control is what makes an athlete unforgettable. Jelena Ostapenko, the confrontation beyond the match. At the 2025 US Open, Jelena Ostapenko's fiery personality met its match, literally, in Taylor Townsend. What began as a heated third-round match ended with one of the tournament's most talked-about confrontations. The tension started early, a disputed net cord call, a long stare during changeovers, subtle gestures that built invisible walls between the two players. By the time the final point was played, Ostapenko's irritation was barely contained. After losing, she walked to the net for a handshake, and stopped. The handshake turned into a face-to-face argument. Cameras caught every second. Ostapenko's sharp words, Townsend's dismissive reaction, the awkward silence that followed. Within hours, the clip was everywhere. Ostapenko didn't calm down afterward. In her press conference, she accused Townsend of being disrespectful and later echoed those thoughts on social media. Fans divided instantly, some siding with her passion, others calling her unprofessional. But what's often missed in that chaos is what drives players like Ostapenko. She plays with emotion, always has. Her forehands are as explosive as her reactions. For her, competition isn't just physical, it's personal. When she feels disrespected, she doesn't hide it behind politeness. This wasn't her first emotional flare-up, and it won't be her last. But in a sport that often demands restraint, Ostapenko represents the opposite: unfiltered intensity. She wears her heart openly, and whether fans love or hate it, they can't ignore it. Her confrontation with Townsend didn't damage her reputation, it solidified it. It showed a player unwilling to suppress her emotions just to fit into the traditional mold of grace under pressure. And in that defiance lies a strange kind of honesty. When tennis history looks back, that moment won't be remembered for who won or lost. It'll be remembered for what it revealed, that even in the most disciplined sport, passion still burns through the cracks of composure. Serena Williams, the US Open Final Fallout. The 2018 US Open Women's Final between Serena Williams and Naomi Osaka was supposed to be a celebration, the moment Serena could tie Margaret Court's record of 24 Grand Slam titles. Instead, it became one of the most emotionally charged matches in tennis history.
I didn't get coaching. You need to make an announcement that I didn't get coaching. I don't cheat. I didn't get coaching. How can you say that? You owe me an apology. You owe me an apology.
The tension started in the second set, when chair umpire Carlos Ramos issued Serena a code violation for coaching. He claimed to have seen hand signals from her coach, Patrick Mouratoglou. Serena immediately rejected the accusation. "I don't cheat to win," she said firmly. "I'd rather lose." What began as a simple dispute soon became a battle of principle and pride. Minutes later, frustration took over. After losing a point, Serena smashed her racket, a second violation, which cost her a point. The pressure built like a storm cloud. When Ramos penalized her again for verbal abuse after she called him a thief, it resulted in a full game penalty. The crowd erupted, confused and angry. Serena's composure broke completely. For many, that outburst wasn't just about the calls. It was years of built-up frustration about respect, authority, and the perception of women in sport. Serena wasn't simply arguing for herself. She was standing against what she saw as an unfair system. The problem was, she did it in real time, on one of the biggest stages in the world. Osaka eventually won her first Grand Slam, but her victory was overshadowed by the chaos. During the trophy ceremony, Osaka cried as boos echoed around the stadium. Serena tried to comfort her, telling the crowd to stop booing and celebrate Osaka's win instead. It was a human moment, two athletes caught in the fallout of something much bigger than tennis. In the aftermath, opinions split. Some said Serena overreacted, while others called her reaction justified. The fine she received didn't matter as much as the conversation she sparked, about gender, authority, and emotion in professional sport. That night, Serena wasn't the composed champion the world had come to expect. She was human, angry, vulnerable, and defiant all at once. And that's why it became one of the most unforgettable moments in modern tennis. Not because she lost her temper, but because she reminded everyone that even icons have limits. Iga Świątek, the tear streak at the Olympics. Iga Świątek walked into the 2024 Paris Olympics as the undisputed favorite. Her dominance on clay was unmatched, a 25-match winning streak, 3 Roland Garros titles, and an aura of invincibility that intimidated opponents before they even stepped on the court. But in her semi-final match against Zheng Qinwen, the pressure finally caught up.
Spielerinnen fühlen sich wohl, wenn man sie trifft an unterschiedlichen Stellen. Die Besucher haben eine tolle Erfahrung hier. Das wird, glaube ich, immer was sein, was man mit ins nächste Jahr nimmt und wahrscheinlich direkt wieder das Ticket bucht. Auch für uns als Solawat, wir sind wirklich immer darauf aus, Kundennähe auch zu nutzen, wo es die Möglichkeiten gibt. Und wir haben hier ein Team am Standort in Frankfurt.
Świątek lost in straight sets, 6-2, 7-5. It wasn't a disastrous performance, but it was enough to end her golden dream. The defeat hit harder than anyone expected. When she entered her post-match press conference, she tried to stay composed, answering questions calmly. But as the topic turned to her expectations and the pressure she felt representing Poland, her voice cracked. Seconds later, she broke down in tears and walked out. The clip went viral. The image of Świątek crying quietly at the podium was unlike anything fans had seen from her. She wasn't angry, just completely overwhelmed. For years, she'd been known for her calmness, her discipline, her focus on mental training. And yet here she was, undone not by an opponent, but by her own emotions. What made the moment powerful was its honesty. There was no media polish, no scripted composure. It was a raw display of what elite athletes go through behind the surface of perfection. Świątek later explained that the pressure of expectations and the desire to win for her country simply became too heavy. Critics praised her vulnerability, calling it a sign of maturity rather than weakness. For many young athletes, the moment was a reminder that even the best struggle. Świątek didn't throw a tantrum or break a racket. She just showed what happens when the emotional weight of excellence becomes too much. Days later, she returned to competition, quiet and focused as ever. But the public's view of her had shifted. She was no longer just a machine-like champion. She was human. Her tears didn't tarnish her image. They deepened it. In a sport that often demands flawless control, Świątek's meltdown was a reminder that even composure has its breaking point. Sometimes losing isn't about defeat on the scoreboard. It's about facing the emotional cost of trying to be perfect. Alexander Bublik, the triple racket meltdown. Alexander Bublik's 2023 meltdown at the Open Sud de France wasn't the kind of anger you could brush off as heat of the moment. It was a full display of unraveling control. Facing Grégoire Barrère, Bublik had been cruising early before his rhythm collapsed. Unforced errors piled up, double faults appeared out of nowhere, and frustration began to take over. After missing another easy shot, he smashed his racket on the court, not once, but 3 times in a row. When it shattered, he grabbed another from his bag and broke that too. Then another. The audience gasped as he destroyed 3 rackets in succession, each swing louder than the last. It was chaos on court. The chair umpire watched, speechless. Barrère stood on the baseline, waiting in silence. Everyone knew they were witnessing something that crossed the line between competitiveness and implosion. The outburst earned Bublik a fine and a reputation as one of the sport's most volatile personalities. What made it striking wasn't just the destruction, but the contrast. Bublik had built his public image on humor and carefreeness, a player who joked about not liking tennis and often entertained crowds with trick shots. But on that day, his jokes ran out. His mask slipped. The nonchalant showman revealed his frustration, his obsession with winning, and the truth behind the act. He cared deeply. Afterward, he joked online about needing a new racket sponsor, but the humor couldn't fully hide the weight of the moment. Analysts called it a meltdown. Fans called it relatable. Everyone has a breaking point. Bublik just happened to reach his in front of cameras. For Bublik, the lesson was simple yet brutal. Performance pressure spares no one, not even those who pretend not to care. And when control gives way, emotion becomes the only thing left to play. Andrei Rublev, the self-inflicted anger. Andrei Rublev's meltdown at Wimbledon wasn't loud, dramatic, or outwardly violent, but it was deeply unsettling. After losing a tight match, Rublev sat on the bench, shaking his head in disbelief. Then, suddenly, he turned his frustration on himself. He took his racket and struck his own leg.
This could be 4-1. And it is. Well, you will see some angry reactions at this year's Wimbledon. But that's extraordinary from Rublev.
Once, twice, then several more times, hard enough to draw blood. The crowd gasped. This wasn't a show of defiance or a protest against an umpire. It was self-directed anger, a form of punishment. Rublev didn't yell or curse. He just looked distant, almost detached, as if trying to hit the disappointment out of himself. It was a painful reminder of how internalized pressure can become self-destructive. Rublev, known for his relentless drive, had always been open about battling his emotions on court. This time, he didn't channel them outward, he turned them inward. And in doing so, he exposed something raw about the mental strain of competition. After the match, he admitted he didn't realize how hard he'd hit himself until afterward. He called it stupid and embarrassing, but his words carried regret rather than defensiveness. The image of his bleeding leg spread quickly across social media, sparking conversations about mental health in sports. Fans and analysts were divided. Some saw the act as disturbing, others saw it as evidence of how deeply athletes care. Either way, it wasn't something to laugh at. It was a quiet, painful display of what happens when self-criticism becomes overwhelming. Rublev's moment didn't define his career, but it left a lasting impression. It showed that sometimes the biggest battles in tennis aren't fought across the net, but inside the mind. And for a brief, uncomfortable moment, the world saw that battle in its rawest form. Not through words or emotion, but through silence and self-inflicted pain. So there it is. Tennis's perfect composure, completely unraveled. 8 players, 8 explosions, 1 clear truth. Even the most graceful game in the world has its limits. If you liked this video, then stay tuned for the next meltdown, because on the court where calm is king, tempers are starting to serve back.